All right. All right. Hello, everybody. Of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in before we get started. We do have a little bit an interesting night tonight. Actually, no comic news. We're not going to do any comic news tonight. But I will go over some stuff. Let's see. I will go over some stuff. Again, we'll wait for a bit, give people a chance to come in, and I'll go over what we'll be going over tonight. So, hopefully, everybody's doing well tonight. And for those who like to lurk, hopefully you will enjoy lurking. Critical blast. Let's see now. Let's see now what else. 369 12 15 18 21 24 27 30 369 12 15 18 21 24 27 30. And there's 3 in the family. And there's 3 in the family. Mama and Daddy had a little baby. Yes, they did. It's a magic number. Hello, we have a second person here. If you can like and share the stream, that would be appreciated. See if we can get some more friendly people in here. We're just waiting to give people a chance to come in and join us before we get started. So, hey, Woody, 8675309. 8675309. Hey, Woody, I know you haven't been on as much lately, and I figured you would want to be because I've actually been covering more wrestling news lately. Granted, it's more of the current stuff going on, but um, I'll have some stuff going. I'll be going over some stuff tonight. So, hope you're doing well. You have grown grayer, Mike. Yeah, yeah, that's probably that happens. That happens to a lot of people, right? People age, people get older. I have a lot more real life stuff going on these days. Uh, well, hopefully you're doing okay. Hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully it just means you're busier, not like nothing major's going down, like anything like that. Yeah, if you can kind of like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. Okay, let's see what you got to say here. My girlfriend is torturing me, forcing me to endure fixing up long broken and comfortable things, huh? Ah, so she's got you working around the house, huh? She got you like doing a lot of maintenance work, there, Woody? Hmm. Hey, Action. Hey there, folks. Hope you're all well. Yep, it's hump day, you know. We have three people here now, so I guess I can go ahead and talk about, try to get started. I know you guys might be lurking a bit, but so here's what's on tap for tonight, guys. Um, there is a bit of a hello, Mister Action Toys. Um, there is a bit of a Vic update on his case. Not a major update. There's no like, as far as we know, there's no decision coming out. But Nick talked about something that happened in regard to the court. Actually coming from, yes, my wife knows. Laugh out loud. It's my day off. Hey Woody. Uh, she's feeding me so much food. I'm going to gain weight, and that's not my fault. Tell you. Uh, yeah. So, anyways, we do have a bit of a Vic, in terms of his case. There's still no ruling has come out yet, but Nick had kind of talked about something last night on his stream that I'm going to go over. Apparently, um, Monica and Ron's appellate attorney has sent a letter to the court, as Nick would put it, politely prodding them to possibly try to get a decision out there. Um, I'll talk a little bit about that. Also, we got some cartoon, including an article. So I got, let's see, that plus, let's see, plus a couple of animation stories, cartoon stories, and of course some wrestling roundups, and also another kind of key issue going on the wrestling side of it as well. Um, So that's pretty much what's on tap for tonight. One of the articles I'm going to be reading from is from Trickle Blast, and then a couple from from Bounding into Comics. So, anyways, with three of us here now, I'm going to go ahead. Hump day, yeah, man. Man, our wrestlers, they move, they make you fat so you can't get get out of the nest. Or nesters. Okay. Yeah. So, anyways, with all that being said, of course, okay. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let me first talk a little bit about, and no reference to any article. As I said, what I'm going to be referencing here is what Nick talked about last night on his stream, because one of the things he brought up was that um, there was something going on in regards to Vic's case, but not a ruling or anything. A ruling, um, but apparently, I guess the appellate lawyers, but it's not Lemoyne. It's a different lawyer for Monica and Ron now, who's handling the appeals. They sent a letter to the appeals court asking, as Nick put it, kind of politely prodding them to kind of, hey, you guys, it's been a while. Can you guys give a decision here? What they pointed out, what now with this though, what they did was they were pointing out that there was again another appeals decision that came out that they felt they could use to try to, like, if you guys remember, when Judge Shutt made his ruling, and when he calculated the damages and all that, he, as compared to Jamie and Funimation's share, Monica and Ron's was quite a bit, and Judge Shupp just completely chopped all that down. And as you know, they were not happy about that, and so they used they kind of try to use an appeals case that happened during the time of Vic's case to try to justify that, hey, Chubb didn't calculate this right. We should have got what we asked for, not just the 50,000 he said we he awarded us. Um, Mike Jeremiah says, "Oh, hey Jeremiah, the judge likes to chop." Yeah, well, pipe prodding is what makes the world go round. Um, yeah, Woody. Well, the idea was what they did was they used this particular appellate case to try to justify that they should get the amount that they asked for instead of the amount that they were awarded. But as Nick pointed out in that, he did use a correct calculation. He used the calculation that the other attorneys had used. Um, Nick, he's basically everybody's saying, well, yeah, this is going to be a slam dunk, but Nick was even saying, no, that part of it's not going to be a slam dunk, because the thing that appellate court dealt with was that in that particular case that they were referencing, it was being used. There was a contingency aspect to it. In other words, the reason that the amounts were different because they were using the contingency calculation, whereas there was no such contingency in Vic's case. Vic wasn't, Vic and his lawyers, nobody there was working on a contingency. That's so basically, though, what Nick said this more or less amounted to, more or less, was them kind of trying to, in a very polite and respectful manner, ask them, "Hey, can you give us a decision here?" Because the thing is, if if you guys remember, this is something that Nick even warned us about. If we sit there and we start trying to prod the judges ourselves, it's liable to backfire. It's liable to get them just pissed off, and then they just get pissed off enough to where they just screw over Vic further because that's why he told us not to say anything to the judges. But they were trying to do it in a way that I mean, I'm sure we all want a decision. We, of course, we want what we feel is the right decision, that that the case should move forward. You know, but like my now, Grant, I'm no lawyer, so this is my from what I understand, from what little I understand of the law. There's a thing here that I think maybe, and part of the reason why maybe they haven't made a decision yet because they are worried about doing something that could potentially really weaken the Fourth Amendment, in terms of the rights to a fair trial. Um, and I know Nick's talked about this too before, but there's such a thing as the idea of setting precedents. Like, okay, so the appellate court may be worried about setting a particular precedent, and we know what I'm referring to here. We're talking about the whole listen and believe. Testimony is actual evidence. That whole thing. Okay, it's the idea that that accusations enough can lead to conviction. Accusations enough can lead to conviction, and that I think is what they don't want to set the precedent that weakens, the Fourth Amendment in that way, to where you can just accuse somebody and they're instantly convicted. Um, that's my take on it. So I mean, I think, as I said, I think we all would like to see them kind of move things a little, make a decision. And I think for most of us on our side, we want to see the case go forward. Obviously, we want them to send it back to Chubb. Actually, quite honestly, I think they should send it to another judge and just, not Chubb, because, Chubb's going to chop it up. But of course, they can't do that. They got to send it back to the court where it came from. So they're going to send it back to Chubb to move it forward, to move the, that's what we're hoping for, to get justice for Vic. So that's pretty much the update there. That was pretty much what Nick talked about. He talked about they were trying to, basically prod them into, basically trying to prod them into, they were trying to prod them into having them, into having the judges, kind of, make a ruling on that, and partly from their side of it too, from of course, reason their lawyers want this as well is they want their money, you know, as long as, as long as it's in appeals, long as it's in appeals, they're not getting their money because, they have to wait for the appellate court to make the decision before they can start, awarding. Because basically, of course, when Vic and Ty and them, when they made the appeals, they basically were saying that the judge incorrectly ruled against them. So while that appeal is going on, the damages can't be distributed until that appeals is dealt with, till the decision is made as to whether or not the appellate court believes that Judge Shupp, did rule correctly or did not. They want their money, and of course they're using this um, other case to try to justify their inordinate amount as compared to the other two attorneys or other two, defendants who basically got the same amount of work done at a much lower cost. So that's basically the long and the short of it there. So with that, now that we've talked about that quite a bit here, um, let's move on to the next story we're going to talk about here, which is going to be the one from RJ's site. We're going to move into, um, some, animation stories, as it were. Um, yeah, and this is going to be a rare occasion where we're not going to actually have any comic stories tonight. Um, we will have obviously something in comics in terms of this day and age history. We have four things there, but here we go with the next article here from Critical Blast on the animation side of it. Anyways, the Batman, no, not that one, lands on Blu-ray. Now, with this article, I think it's a review of the Batman animated series from about. Well, he's saying it goes back 20 years, almost 20 years ago, that it came out. They're not talking about the one that's coming out right now. This I think um, was the animated series, I think, from the mid to late 2000s, I think. But so here we go, and this was, of course, this is an article that RJ did last Thursday. We're just getting to it now. Oh, and of course, I should have probably. Yes, I just. Batman, no, not that one, lands on Blu-ray. It's from the 2000s. So let's see what RJ has to say about this series. Um, it's hard to believe it was nearly 20 years ago that The Batman debuted on television. And in parentheses here, he says, "Don't even get me started on how many yesterdays it was since Batman the Animated Series began." Now it's back, of course, in '92. That was like 30 years ago, actually, when Batman the Animated Series, the one he's talking about there. But fans of the show can now binge the entire series with this 6-disc Blu-ray collection from Warner Brothers. Batman starred Reno Romano as a young Bruce Wayne. Reno Romano, of course, some of his other roles he did do Tuxedo Mask very early on in the Deke dub of Sailor Moon. He also, I think, he even went on after this to voice Spider Man. I think it was the Ultimate Spider Man series um, in the '90s, actually late '90s. So let's see, who was still early enough in his Batman career that he had yet to encounter his iconic villains, such as the Joker, who was voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, pretty well known voice actor. Among some of his other works include, of course, Robert Hawkins in Static Shock, um, Mammoth and Teen Titans. Um, you've heard his voice, so I'm sure. Tom Kenny is the Penguin. Tom Kenny is, of course, Professor Utonium in Powerpuff Girls and a few other, or Catwoman Gina Gershon. In fact, it wasn't until late in the second season that the audience is introduced to Commissioner James Gordon, voiced by Mitch Pileggi. Um, until that time, Batman's encounters with the Gotham PD were confrontations with detectives Ellen Yin, voiced by Ming Na Wen. Among her works, of course, include Dr. Deb Chen and ER, among other things, and Ethan Bennett, Steve Harris. This wasn't necessarily a bad thing, as the new characters were blank slates upon which we could witness character growth. Yin and Bennett are under orders from Chief Rojas, voiced by Jesse Cordy, to bring the Batman as part of the department's zero tolerance policy against freaks. Now, for those of you who may not be as aware, early on in the comics, Batman did not have he didn't have the strong rapport with the police department that we know of he has today. Um, you know, early on he had a very, police just looked at him as a outlaw vigilante, and they tried to bring him in. It wasn't until he met up with Gordon that the police actually started working with the Batman and all that. So Bennett, however, is sympathetic to Batman's mission, while Yin is determined to do her job. Slowly coming around, the more she sees Batman in action, particularly after she loses her partner, who is tragically transformed into the villain Clayface. Yes, even Bennett was the Clayface for this series. Yes, you're correct. Clayface in the comics was never Ethan Bennett, and Joker never had Rastafarian looks, and Riddler was never a lanky goth. Granted, these are all literary interpretations for this particular series that were made. Um, there were definitely reinterpretations aplenty with the launch of the series. Bruce himself was a more relaxed individual whose favorite meal largely consisted of nachos, a specialty of his faithful butler Alfred, voiced by Alistair Duncan. And this Alfred actually did seem to have more of a British accent to him too. I remember that, from the few times I watched the series. It seemed very out of character in a lot of places, which perhaps drove the change of direction with the third season. The introduction of James Gordon came with his daughter Barbara Gordon, voiced by Danielle Judovitz, who, of course, has been known to do some voice work. I think one of her voice roles, of course, is Tenten in the Naruto series, English voice, of course, who quickly adopts the identity of Batgirl and appears regularly. The themes there, and here's another thing about this series too. Batgirl was actually introduced before Robin. Robin in this series, Robin came after Batgirl. Now in the comic, Robin came before Batgirl. Batgirl came later. In fact, in the 50s, the only reason they wanted to introduce, Batwoman and Batgirl was to kind of offset the idea that Batman and Robin were involved in a gay relationship. But here, Batgirl is introduced before Robin. So, let's see. The theme song also changes, adopting many of the riffs of Neil Hefti's 1966 iconic theme song, quote, which reminded him of Adam West Adam West had regular work here with the recurring role of Mayor Grange. So Adam West actually, they brought him in to voice Mayor Grange. Okay. Robin, Evan Sabara, gets introduced soon after, followed by the rest of the Justice League, which saw the stories of the Gotham PD detectives all but disappear from the series. Let's see and of course, I know I haven't said this yet, but as always, guys, feel free to comment as you see fit when you see something. And I see RJ's here. Hey, RJ. Let's see what you were saying here. I know. Might as well get caught up on a few chats here. He's a menace. Right. I liked Batman better when he used guns. Let's see. Warner knew they were doing what they were doing with this release timing. Searches for the Batman Blu-ray release date would turn this. Yeah. Oh yeah, hey RJ, I don't know if you're still here, but earlier, as I was going back and forth earlier between EVS's and Hero Shack streams, Hero Shack used your intro music as part of his opening. Just figured you might want to know that. That's pretty cool as part of it. So RJ, good to see you. Yeah, the gun thing really does make suspension of disbelief difficult for marginal fans like myself. Well, what you have to understand too, Woody, the reason Batman didn't use guns because it was actually guns that killed his parents. Okay, established in I think it does more in the Silver and Bronze Age, and even some a little bit to the modern age as well. Batman hates guns. Okay, because it was guns that took his parents. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's a full on like gun control freak or anything like that, but I mean, to me, Frank Gorshin and Cesar Romero are Riddler and Joker, um, and anyone else can go fit. Well, what's kind of funny, you mentioned Frank Gorshin right there. Frank Gorshin was in this series, was in the series that we're talking about here. Of course, he didn't voice the Riddler. That was Robert Englund who voiced the Riddler in this series. But Frank Gorshin voiced Dr. Hugo Strange in this series, the series we're talking about. Um, so there's another nod to the old. And nobody ever is going to tell me that Penguin didn't train Rocky Balboa. Yeah, Burgess Meredith was, of course, the Penguin from the Batman TV series. Yes, he asked for it. Yeah. Also, I don't know if you were aware too, RJ, but Vicky was popping in to say hi on Chris's stream a bit there. And I think they're getting a little riled up over everything that's been going on of late as well. Anyways, let's see. Good point, Mike. Yeah, thank you. Cool, Mike. I didn't know that. Educate me some more. And I do my best, Woody. You know that. It's one of the things I love to do is educate people, or at least get the information out there. And of course, I do appreciate any and all likes and shares. If you guys haven't already, if you guys can do that and help me out, get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. Anyways, getting back to this article now that now I've got caught up on the chat a little bit, and um, the series is collected on 6 Blu-ray discs. Comes with a digital code. The disc include a handful of special features, including or exploring how this version of The Dark Knight differed from past interpretations, while providing insights into the villains and supporting cast of the show. With hype over the Batman movie currently in theaters, Warner Brothers picked the perfect time to release the series onto Blu-ray, which I believe is what RJ was getting at when he made his comment in the chat there. That's I think what he was getting at when he made his last comment there. So with that being said, and of course we did talk about the Vic update earlier. Um, yeah, basically just a quick recap for you, RJ. Um, Nick read over a letter that was sent by Monica and Ron's appellate attorney to the appeals court, kind of, in his words, politely prodding them to make a decision on the appeals. So that's what we talked about earlier. So, anyways, now with that being done, now let's go ahead and move on to some other topics. Our next article, of course, is going to be another animation article. And I am aware of the Donny Cates story, or aware that there's some story about it. I actually pushed that back to tomorrow to focus on other things today, since I'd already kind of decided the stories I was going to do today here. So, anyways, there's a couple stories here, and one of them is going to link to a wrestling story a little later. Back, hey RJ, hope you're well. So here's the next article we're going to do here. All right, Harley Quinn spinoff starring Kite Man and inspired by Cheers in development. Article by JB Augustine. March. Now, normally go I go the furthest down and come back up. This time I'm doing a little reverse because, again, the connecting to just connecting the two animation story, cartoon story together, and the next story will be more of a wrestling story. Yeah, things look a little dim. I think I need to turn my room light on. I'm gonna just step away from the computer for just a couple of seconds here. I'll be right back. All right. Anyways, so I'm back now. Um, yeah. So let's get into this article here. I think I already read the headline and all that. So yeah. Now, for those of you who don't know, Kite Man in the comics was one of Batman's villains during the Silver Age. He was a lesser known villain, basically in a time of like gimmicky super villains and all that. He was basically a lot of his crimes revolved around him using kites as part of his mo. So just a little quick little history tidbit there. Obviously not as prominent as like Joker or Penguin or Riddler or any of those guys, but you know, for the CCA period, the Comics Code Authority period, he proved to be, a decent villain. But anyways, HBO Max has another animated series in the works, and based on the Grizzly hit Harley Quinn, it is one more that will fit the adult cartoon mold. Taking center stage is the show's breakout Mort of the Month, Kite Man, and Gotham City's watering hole for villains. The bar, Noonan's, that first appeared in comics in the Demon Annual, also supplies the working title, as the comedy is going to be heavily influenced by the classic sitcom Cheers. So basically, what they're saying here is there's going to be Cheers in animated form. Just instead of the characters you're used to from Cheers, they're all going to be super villains. So just grasp that. For those of you who may have watched, Cheers growing up back in the '80s, there, um, yeah, this is going to be where everybody does know their name. Um, where everybody knows their name, as it were, all these supervillains. So, anyways, as where let's continue on here. Explained showrunner, show creator Patrick Schumacher at SXSW via slash film. Announced during a panel called, quote, reimagining of iconic characters for an adult audience, unquote. That was part of the Not Kidding Around Warner Brothers animation presentation. Schumacher added the concept involves Kite Man buying the titular hangout and trying to run it. Quote, he tries to run the bar by himself, but it doesn't turn out so easy, unquote. Yeah, can you imagine that? He's the lone bartender. He's the lone waiter, cook, um, office manager, trying to do all these different things by himself. Doesn't have like Coach or Woody around, or or Carla to kind of help him out, or his versions of those characters, obviously. Schumacher also says there will be cameos by Harley and Kite Man's former flame, Poison Ivy. Now, as I understand it, in the Harley Quinn um, animated show that this is spun off from, I think Kite Man's last appearance had Poison Ivy basically leaving him at the altar. So, who aren't usually far behind. Quote, we have Harley and Ivy appear in the first episode, but after that, we have different goons and villains appearing every episode, like Lex Luthor and Bane. It will be kind of like Cheers for super. Yeah, as I was saying, that's what I was saying. Where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came when you know your name. Where everybody knows your name. Do 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 do. Cheers was a highly rated Emmy-winning TV show that brought Ted Danson, Woody Harrelson, George Wendt, and John Ratzenberger to prominence. It also now, of course, Ted Danson was former baseball player turned bartender, bar owner, or bartender Sam Malone. Woody Harrelson was brought in after to replace the character Coach, who's I don't remember the actor's name who at the time who played Coach in that, but Coach, um, the actor who played Coach had passed away, um, and they brought Woody in to kind of replace him. Um, George Wendt um, as Norm, and John Ratzenberger as the mailman guy. Let's see. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But anyways, it was introduced. It also introduced the world to Kelsey Grammer's noteworthy Fraser Crane character that had his own measure of success and could be revisited. Of course, Fraser Crane would eventually, hit Kelsey Grammer. He would get his own spinoff from this show, as we all know, with Frasier. The NBC series continues to be very influential for decades hence. And here, of course, see the picture right there with Kelsey Grammer as Fraser Crane and Shelley Long there as Diana, who served as another one of the barmaids as well as Sam's love interest in the first few seasons before they brought in, I think it was Kirstie Alley, who they brought in to replace her. Noonan's sounds like your average episode of Harley Quinn, which often has cameos by Gotham rogues and members of the Bat family milling about through their own subplots or for some extra idiotic comic relief. There will be more of all that when season 3 of Harley premieres this year eventually. Are you awaiting with bated breath or desirous of a spinoff? Sound off below. So there we go with that one. Don't know if you guys have anything you'd like to say on that. Now that we got through those two animation stories right there, two cartoon stories, we're going to actually move on to some wrestling news now. The word now before we get to like kind of the run throughs of some of the other stuff going on, and this is going to eventually lead into. But this has a little bit to do with, of course, pro wrestling. This also has a little bit to do with some censorship. Is wrestling, yeah, yeah. That's the way that many people in the South probably said it there. Anyways, this story now to let you guys know this involves a tag team known as the Briscoe Brothers. Now this team of Briscoe Brothers has actually no relation to the older Briscoe brothers. This team is not related to Jack and Jerry Briscoe. These guys are Jay and Mark Briscoe, aka Jay and Mark Pugh. They took on the Briscoe name and they spell their name with an E with it. Long time independent workers working on many of the East Coast independents, of course, including Ring of Honor, Combat Zone Wrestling, um, Jersey All Pro. They're currently also, and I'll get to this a little bit more detailed, also going to be involved with the NWA this weekend as well. And I'll get to that in a little bit here. But right now, we're going to go ahead and go through this article here because this has a little bit more. So, Warner Media reportedly blocking AEW, right now currently considered the number 2 promotion in America right now, just behind the WWE, from signing top independent tag team wrestlers due to old anti-gay marriage remarks. Like I said, this Briscoe team has been around for a while. They've been around for 20 years. Excuse me a moment. I think I got to go check on Chloe. I think she might be barking. So I'll be right back, guys. Well, it would seem you guys have had a couple of comments there. Okay, so let's see. Wow, lame, lame. So they dug back like 20 years for some old. Well, I don't know. Their career has spanned 20 years. I don't know if the anti-gay marriage comments are that old or not. Obviously I didn't pre-read this article, but yeah, going back over a 20-year time period there to find something like that. What a bunch of little manager toe suckers. All right. Him snuffles a dog biscuit. All right. So, anyways, yeah. So let's get into this article, and of course, it's going to lead into some other wrestling news too. We'll talk about. All right. So we already read the headline of the article. JB Augustine, published this earlier today. Um, but yeah, the Briscoes are considered one of the top independent tag teams. I've already kind of gone over some of their credentials and stuff like that. So, and we'll be talking a little bit more about them a little bit later too, because they'll be involved in something this weekend of great importance. Anyways, you may not have heard of Mark and Jay Briscoe, but the sibling tag team is a pair of the hottest free agents on the indie wrestling scene. For 2 decades, their fans have been wondering when or if they will be signed by one of the big two companies, especially now that Tony Khan, owner of All Elite Wrestling, pulled an unexpected gambit and bought the brothers' home turf, Ring of Honor, lock, stock, and barrel. Um, and I'm sure some of you may have heard about that. Ring of Honor was bought out by Tony Khan. He himself bought it out. AEW did not buy it out. He himself bought it, but you have started to see guys from AEW have shown up on Dynamite and Rampage, and there's a group of AEW guys has also been on Impact a bit under a faction called Honor No More. I've talked a little bit about that, and of course, some of these guys have shown up on NWA as well. That purchase gives the Briscoes a direct line to AEW, but if you're asking yourself when they'll appear on All Elite programs such as Dynamite and Rampage, the answer is probably never. Briscoe brothers respond to the Hardys DC Wrestling. Man, look at that! Oh man, that guy got a few of his teeth knocked out. Let's see. Fightful Select reported this is due to an unnamed higher up at Warner Media having the ear of Khan since Dynamite and Rampage air on Warner affiliated Turner networks, which is true. In fact, Dynamite. Well, for all actually right now, in fact, Dynamite I think might be airing at this moment on TNT. Um, and then Rampage airs on Friday night, so um, on TBS. TNT and TBS even have their own titles named after them on these channels as well. And again, we'll get into some of that a little bit here. As such, the higher up is barring the Briscoes from being signed by Khan because of comments Jay made in 2013. So that's basically 9 years ago. When his and Mark's home state of Delaware legalized gay marriage. Um, Before facing an outcry and deleting his Twitter, Jay tweeted the following on the issue. Quote, try and teach my kids that there's nothing wrong with that. Um, and I'll bleeping shoot you. Okay. Um, yeah, probably not something you want to be saying on Twitter, mind you, especially with the Twidiots. But I'm sure a lot of parents out there. We know. I'm sure a lot of parents. We know. I'm sure, like some of you who are parents here, and I'm sure um, Nick and Doug, and I think Yellow Flash is a parent as well. Have probably some of the same feelings about matter. The two self-described God-fearing country boys, quote unquote, found themselves in a bit of bother at the time over the company. And by the way, I think that Jay deleting his Twitter was probably one of the wisest things he could do. Don't want to be in that bleak hole. They and Ring of Honor, they and Ring of Honor, acquired by Sinclair Broadcasting, by then issued formal apologies, and the scandal lay dormant for the time being. Although there are wrestling fans that continue to hold a grudge against quote dem boys, you know, and of course, the Warner Media. We all know about Warner Media, okay, because we know that Flash and Tug talk quite a bit about them and their actual corporate positions on this stuff. So we know that. Hey, Robert, how you doing, man? Let's see. Hail, Lord Princess Lord Zemu, and hail Princess Zima, our only saviors. Ugh, wrestling. Any comics related news? I decided not to go with it tonight. I did see that there was a Donny Kate story, but I pushed it back to tomorrow. I started off talking about a Vic Mignogna update, did a couple of cartoon stories, and now, yeah, the rest of the show is going to basically be wrestling updates here, Robert. So I'm glad you stopped in, though. If you can still like and share the stream and see if we can get some more people in here, that'd be appreciated. Um, yeah. Remember, I do a lot of niche coverage, so comics is only one thing I cover. I lately I've been trying to cover a little bit more wrestling news because I realized I hadn't covered a lot of wrestling news on here. So, but thank you for dropping in, anyways. All right, so continuing on with the article here, Jay and Mark stayed with Ring of Honor up until the promotion went on hiatus last year, months before Khan's big purchase, and went on to set the record for most tag team title wins. Jay, meanwhile, as a single star, ascended to the main event and got to represent the company as their world champion twice. Despite the accolades, Jay's tweets apparently wasn't forgotten and didn't go unnoticed at the very top of Warner's hierarchy. Well, I mean, if AEW doesn't want him, that's fine. There's been a lot of talk. I think it might be a blessing in disguise for the Briscoes because they've talked a lot about how AEW, in terms of its star power, is kind of top heavy. You have a lot of names, who are currently out there, big names who are they're kind of top heavy in terms of talent. They may have too many stars, and it may actually be to the Briscoes' benefit that they're not involved with AEW. You know, might open the door for like Impact and NWA to. And again, we are going to get into that a little bit here soon. But anyways, that's just my own personal opinion on that. But anyways, let's continue on with the article here. This is unfortunate when the Briscoes are the current Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, capturing the title at the event Final Battle in December, and are building a feud with one of AEW's top teams, FTR, for a match that fans have been yearning for. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, that, if they are currently the Ring of now, as far as we know, um, as far as we know, um, we do know that AEW has been promoting a lot of Ring of Honor champions of late because I know I think on their B programs I think it's in fact I think it was on Dark last night, AW Dark, where they actually had ROH Pure Champion on there. So that might be a problem if Briscoe what if the executives, the Warner executives won't allow Tony to sign them, and they're the current ROH Tag Team Champions. Because I don't know if the Briscoes are actually holding on to the tag belts themselves. They actually have physical possession. That might be a bit tricky there, um, because that would mean that they couldn't get them back. They could not get the Tony Khan could strip them of the titles, and then maybe through a lawyer try to get the belts back. You see, the NWA used to have a way to solve this problem, with the world heavyweight title where people couldn't just take off with it. Hail and a hearty handshake. Okay. What the NWA used to do is if they were going to put the NWA World Heavyweight title on somebody, they would the person who the title was going to go on would have to submit like a $2,500 deposit that made sure that they would honor their. Now I don't know if that's still in effect. Billy Corp continues that practice to this day, but it was, as far as I knew, practice up until Billy Corp bought the promotion. So, but yeah, this could lead to some issues there. Let's see. It's also a tad hypocritical when Khan was willing to book Mike Tyson and controversial deathmatch wrestler Nick Gage, both of whom possess criminal histories. Now, Nick Gage is one of the top guys from Combat Zone Wrestling in Jersey. This guy is known, as they said, he's a deathmatch wrestler. He's known for hardcore death matches. He's another guy from Combat Zone Wrestling. He's done some. I think he's done some work for Jersey All Pro as well. So, um, of course, we know about Tyson's stuff, but Gage bloodied actor David Arquette in a hardcore no rules match. Arquette agreed to wrestle him when the actor decided to return to the ring for the first time since his polarizing stint as WCW, where he won the world title. Yes, there were a lot of wrestling purists who were not happy with that. Um, now, now here are the Briscoe brothers right here. So just think of this. Think of the guys in Duck Dynasty. Think of this as guys who are similar to the guys in Duck Dynasty who happen to also wrestle in a ring. So think about it from that perspective. The Briscoes were supposed to defend the titles at ROH's next scheduled pay-per-view, Supercard of Honor. But those plans are on hold thanks to Khan's acquisition. So now, whether or not he might try to bring him in so they can drop the titles, whether or not they will agree to drop the titles, those are all things that will have to be sorted out because Warner Media probably does not want these guys in there because these guys are, they're probably all the stereotypes that they want to throw out there. They're the Trump supporting, good old country boys, What direction he takes the famed indie promotion is yet to be determined, though it's theorized he will use a 20-year-old tape library to help him ink a streaming deal with HBO Max. And that's been talked about a lot too. That was one of the things. So we have access to the, and of course we've seen this because I think right after he made the purchase of Ring of Honor, one of the first matches that was signed after that was a match between Christopher Daniels and Bryan Danielson, who were both heavily involved in that as well. So. All right. So, anyways, let's finish out the article here, and then I'll move on to. Okay. So, what do you think will happen? Will Warner Media relent on the Briscoe brothers and let them in? Were Jay's comments really that bad? Make your thoughts known. Well, it's a sentiment that a lot of parents share. I don't. I think within certain contexts they weren't maybe quite as bad as as many on the left would want to make it sound. Um, but on the other hand, we know Warner. Now will Warner relent? If now again, I think part of the problem is that AEW is considered pretty top heavy. They have a lot of big names already on the show, and the Briscoe brothers are considered one of the top independent tag teams in the professional on the indie scene right now. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes here. So that's all we have for that article. But if Tony Khan is going to plan on doing something more with Ring of Honor than just use their tape library, if he is going to actually have people defending their belt on the show, then of course, well, the Briscoe brothers are the current ROH, World Tag Team Champions. So he's going to need to at least bring him on to a show. Even if he doesn't bring him on to the specific Warner meet, he could have him come to a pay-per-view and drop the titles. But then again, over all this stuff, would the Briscoes even agree to drop the titles? They may just decide to stick it to Ring of Honor. Hey, screw you. You're not going to have us on. We're not giving you the titles back. Tony Khan could theoretically strip them of the titles and just sanction a belt maker to make new titles. But again, that also goes towards, well, whether or not they're going to have Ring of Honor as a as a separate promotion too. So we'll have to wait and see how all that plays out. Now, getting to some other other wrestling news, obviously. So let me deal with the AEW stuff first. So right now, as we're doing this, they're probably finishing up because I think they started at 5 o'clock my time. So depending, I don't know. I don't know if they go. I don't know if Dynamite goes 1 hour or 2 hours, but if they go 2 hours, they'd probably be finishing up by now. But on tonight's episode of Dynamite marked AEW's debut in San Antonio at the Freeman Coliseum. They had some major stuff going on tonight. Let's see. The first time in AEW, you had a women's cage match on the show tonight. That was the main event. So, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, who, aside from being a professional wrestler, is a dentist in Florida as well. She defended the AEW World Women's Championship against Thunder Rosa in a steel cage match. So this was the first women's cage match. Again, I don't have any results. I'm, obviously as of yet, but that was going down tonight. Also, the TNT Championship was on the line tonight as Scorpio Sky, who just won it from previous champ Sammy Guevara on last week's main event for Dynamite, defends against Wardlow, who is known as the Face of the Revolution, winning the Face of the Revolution match at not this past Sunday, but the week before's AEW Revolution pay-per-view. And those are probably the two big matches of the night. You also had what they call a trios match or a six-man tag match in which the AEW World Heavyweight Champion Hangman Adam Page and the Jurassic Express AEW Tag Team Championship teamed up together to face off against the team of Adam Cole and Red Dragon, six-man tag. So that was all that was going. And then you also had Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson in tag action with William Regal in their corner. They had all that going on Dynamite tonight. So that was basically kind of what was stuff to be looking into in terms of for AEW. Now, getting onto the NWA a bit here, because we got some news coming out of the NWA as well. That does kind of also revolve a little bit around the Briscoe brothers. As this weekend, Saturday, March 19th and Sunday, March 20th, from the Nashville Fairgrounds, the NWA is holding the Crockett Cup event, which includes, of course, the tag team tournament, which you have 19 teams. Well, I guess 18 because one of the matches has actually already happened. The Fixers defeated OGK to advance in the tournament. Among some of the other big names in the tournament include, of course, the Briscoe brothers, who we were talking about earlier. They're going to be involved in the Crockett Cup this weekend from the Nashville Fairgrounds. NWA World Tag Team Champions La Rebellion. The tag team representing Strictly Business, known as Chris Adonis and Tom Latimer, better known to some fans by their WWE personas of Chris Masters and Bram. You also have Doug Williams and Harry Smith also participating in the tournament. Harry Smith, of course, the son of Davey Boy Smith. The son of Davey Boy Smith, who is they're participating in the tournament. Members of Matt Cardona's faction are also Mike Knox and VSK. You have the Pope, Elijah Burke, and Mims teaming up. The former Damian Sandow, Aaron Stevens, and his tag partner JP Kratos, who are also former NWA World Tag Team Champions, are also part of this tournament. So you got a lot of well-known teams, and then you have the play-in match with four-time former NWA World Tag Team Champions Heat Seekers involved in that match, with also Violence is Forever, Rip City Shooters, and another. I can't even remember the other team right now. Aside from the tag team from the Crockett Cup Tag Team Tournament, also happening at the event this weekend in the main event, of course, sees Matt Cardona defend the NWA World Heavyweight Championship against two-time former NWA World Champion Nick Aldis, with former NWA World Champion Jeff Jarrett as a special guest referee. Also during the event, you see in a three-way dance, you see the current NWA World Women's Champion Camille defending her title against Smiley Kylie Ray and Chelsea Green. Now, initially, this is going to be Smiley Kylie Ray and Camille in a one-on-one match, but Matt Cardona used his influence as NWA World Champion to get his, I believe it's his wife, Chelsea Green, involved into that match to make it a three-way. So we'll have to just wait and see there. Also, the junior heavyweight championship will be reestablished after having been vacated back in 2017 when Billy Corgan bought out the NWA. NWA World Junior Heavyweight title will be reestablished in a four-way dance involving Austin Aries, second generation star Colby Corino, the son of former NWA World Champion Steve Corino, Darius Lockhart, and Homicide, of course, of the tag team Latin American exchange from his TNA days, where he teamed with Hernandez as they were under the management of Conan back then. You have that going on. You have for the NWA World Television title, Tyrus, formerly known as Brodus Clay in WWE, with Austin Idol as his manager and representing Idol Sports Management, Idol Mania Sports Management. He defends the NWA World Television title against Rodney Mack. And then for the NWA National Heavyweight Championship, Anthony Montgomery, known also as Crimson to some folks, will be defending against former NWA World Champion and National Champion Jax Dane. So that's kind of a rundown of some of the. Then also for the NWA World Women's Tag Team Championship, you have the team of Allison Kay and Marty Bell defending against Kenzie Page, and I can't remember the other girl's name. So that's now the Crockett Cup event is happening this weekend, the 19th and 20th, from the Nashville Fairgrounds. If you guys are in that area, you might want to go check it out. NWA, of course, stands for tradition. As I told you, the Briscoe brothers, who we were just talking about earlier, will be participating in that tournament in the tag tournament as well. Now, on to some WWE news, as of course, tributes to Scott Hall continue to keep rolling in. As you guys know, he passed away, I believe, on Monday after having suffered 3 heart attacks while he was following hip surgery. So that's going on. Let's see. That's been going on. You've heard a lot of tribute going on today for him. So, anyways, was there anything you guys wanted to ask about or comment on? I know there's another issue going on too. I know EBS did a stream on it. I know it's been kind of talked about I know another guy that I'm subscribed to is also going to be talking about it. Probably just starting right now, in fact, from what I understand. But but aside from that, anything that we talked about tonight that you guys want to comment more on or ask about or say more? Um, and as always, guys, of course, I do keep my streams up. So if you want to go back and listen to the stories again, you're more than welcome to. Um, give you guys a few moments, see if anybody wants to add anything more to the conversation. If not, we'll probably start to wind down and finish up here. So I just want to give you guys a chance. Guys, had anything you want more you want to say about what's going on here? All right, going once, going twice. All right, as it would appear, nobody has anything more they want to add to the conversation here. Guess it's a good time to probably start winding down here. I guess we'll go ahead and do that then. So, without any further ado, let's get to this day in Nietzsche history. Today being Wednesday, March 16th. We'll go ahead and take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. And first thing we're going to look at is on this date back in 1972. We're going to go back 50 years ago today. On this date back in 1952, the 55th and final issue of Three Stooges went on sale from Gold Key Comics. On this date, it sold for 15 cents, was 32 pages. Now, mind you, this part of the series only ran from issues 10 to 55. Apparently, there were 9 issues before this, so it might have been a case where the previous issues were those previous 9 issues may have been done by, maybe they were done by Dell or something like that. That would be my guess. But on this date in 1972, the 55th and final issue of Three Stooges from Gold Key Comics went on sale on this date. As noted before, Gold Key was one of those companies that would take licensed, already licensed products and do comic adaptations of them. So with that, let's move on to the next piece in each history. As on this date in As on this date in okay, so on this date in 1997, from the Charleston Coliseum, or the North Charleston Coliseum, Charleston, South Carolina, WCW held its uncensored event on this date in 1997, which was 25 years ago today. The main event of that the main event of that night saw Team NWO comprised of the Outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, again the late Scott Hall that we just talked about. Hollywood Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage with Dennis Rodman in their corner. Team Piper comprised of Roddy Piper, Chris Benoit, Steve McMichael, Jeff Jarrett, and Team WCW comprised of Lex Luger, the Giant, and Scott Steiner. They defeated him in a triangle elimination match. Now, what they won here was the right to stay in WCW. And if the NWA had lost, they would have been kicked out of WCW at this point. So they won this match. You also saw Prince Iaukea defend defend and retain the WCW World Television title from Rey Mysterio Jr. You saw Harlem Heat defeat the Public Enemy in a Texas Tornado match, Texas Tornado tag match. Buff Bagwell defeated Scotty Riggs in a strap match. Glacier defeated Mortis. Ultimo Dragon defeated Psychosis. Dean Malenko would defeat Eddie Guerrero for the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship. And then Ice Train would defeat Max in a dark match. So that's all that went down on that day in 1997. And 1997 is just so nice. We need to hit it twice as one other thing, since that was on a Sunday, mind you. One other thing that happened on that day in 1997, 25 years ago today, was the Simpsons episode Homer versus the 18th Amendment. So in the episode, Springfield enacts prohibition after a raucous St. Patrick's Day celebration in which Bart ended up getting drunk. To supply Moe's speakeasy, Homer becomes a bootlegger. The episode was okay. So, and as such, they discovered that prohibition had actually been the law on the books in Springfield. So, but that's all that kind of happened there with that. All right. So, anyways, so let's get to the last piece of niche history here. Hope everybody's enjoyed the content tonight. On this date, 10 years ago today, in 2012, the 6-episode anime Ozuma, also known as Leiji Matsumoto's Ozuma, premiered on this date on the Wow Wow Network in Japan, Gonzo Studios. So on this date in 2012, 10 years ago today, Gonzo Studios Ozuma, Leiji Matsumoto's Ozuma, premiered on Wow Wow Network. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Of course, don't forget that this Friday, Batgoat will be with me as we will be going back through continuing our historical comics retrospect, looking at comics that went on sale November 1938, looking at comics from Centaur and Fiction House. So I hope to see you all there on Friday. I hope to see you all back here tomorrow night for more niche news and more niche news coverage. And I thank you guys again. And I hope I will see you back here tomorrow. Bye.